To everyone that's watching, thank you for joining this panel. This is, of course, the panel on film criticism. The subject of the day is film criticism in a no first day, first show world. I'm Rajeev Masand, and I'm so happy that I have a bunch of my colleagues that I wouldn't have otherwise had a chance to see if it wasn't for this panel. So thank you to all of you for encouraging us to do this panel. I'm going to introduce my fellow colleagues who are on this panel. We've got Udita Jhunjhunwala, who's here from Mumbai. Udita, say hello.
Hello.
We have Shubhra Gupta, who's here from New Delhi. Shubhra.
Hi.
We have Sangeetha Devi, who's joining us from Hyderabad. Hello, Sangeetha.
Hi. Hi, Rajeev. Hi, everyone.
Hello. And we've got Saibal Chatterjee, who's joining us also from New Delhi. Hello, Saibal.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
And in a few moments, hopefully, we will have Baradwaj Rangan, who will join us from Chennai. He is trying to get in, and he will be in a couple of moments. But gentlemen, ladies, I thought maybe we could. There we have Baddy. We have Baradwaj has joined us as well.
Hi. Sorry.
Baddy.
Hi.
So thank you to everyone. As I was saying to everyone, we haven't seen each other for a while. We haven't been in those dark cinema halls, exchanging looks. Not so much notes, but exchanging looks, certainly, giving each other a sense of what we thought of it, thought of the film. But I want to start by asking you, withdrawal pangs, everybody. Are you missing the movies? Do you miss those trips to the cinema halls?
Big time.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes. It's a no-brainer. I don't miss the samosas, but I miss the trips to the cinema. And I miss sitting with all of you guys.
Okay, so here's my thing. I don't miss the trips to the cinema. I miss the cinema madly. The getting stuck in traffic to get to the theaters that we have to, usually an hour away from where we are. I don't miss the traffic where the PRs are calling and say, "Ma'am, where have you reached? The film is about to start." No, so I don't miss the traffic, but honestly, I just miss the cinemas so much.
I'm just going to be a little contrarian and just say I wish it didn't have to happen this way, but I'm kind of glad that this kind of enforced break happens, because I think a kind of break like this is important to kind of recalibrate a bit. I think not, because the thing is, ours is such a treadmill kind of job, right? It's like week in, week out, or like day in, day out. It's like something else, some interview, something. So when you have a break like this, even like again, I'm saying I'm glad. I wish it didn't have to happen this way. But it's something that sometimes you just I'm saying that I miss it but I'm saying of course I want to get back to it, but I can say that this break has been kind of nice.
Baddy, there was a gentleman called Shlok who's asking, do you miss the popcorn at
Satyam?
At Satyam, yeah.
No, I don't eat popcorn at Satyam. I'm one of the few people. I'm not a big popcorn fan, actually, because
I'm not either. This is one of those myths we have to bust. How many of us love popcorn here?
No,
I can't buy popcorn.
Wow, that's
I love
six
caramel.
of us.
Caramel popcorn gets my vote.
Okay.
I don't think I like popcorn, but it's the habit. You sit watching a film for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Time pass.
I don't mind it, but the thing is, if it is all hot and fresh and nice, then it's fine.
No, that's like expecting too much.
That's what happens. No, I think the thing is that besides the traffic, I don't miss the extra calories. And I agree with Baddy that it's kind of good to have an opportunity to recalibrate and to take a pause, because I think that what was happening, and Rajiv, I'm sorry, I apologize if I'm jumping ahead on your questions, but I think that we had all gotten into this drill where we finished a movie, we rushed back, we had a very early morning deadline where we had to turn something in. Some people were turning a review in within 2 hours of a screening finishing. There was absolutely no time to breathe, to pause, to absorb, to sort of even think about what you'd seen and sort of formulate your thoughts in a really coherent way, and I think that that has happened now to some extent. It's given us that break, but I think now with OTTs kind of also going the feature film way with not giving screeners in advance, I think Sangeetha's had that kind of day today. maybe Sangeetha can talk about that.
The Telugu film industry has been a little more laid back, I would say. You know, the password protected links, previews, and embargoes just don't work over here. 90% of the time we watch an early morning show, 8:45 a.m. at Prasad's is like a religion for anyone who loves movies. That euphoria of going there and watching, and then you head back to office, and by around 3 or 3:30, it's like, you know, your net desk is asking you where's a review so that you can upload it. That's the kind of drill we've all. I miss it. I miss it hugely. But OTT has also been no different. Yeah, either you wake up at midnight and watch, which I don't. So early morning is the drill again. That's the way it's been going.
Okay, I am going to jump in here and say, I'm going to say that I haven't watched as much stuff as I have in the last 2.5 months, man. I mean, I am constantly watching. There is, you know, the kind of, you know, the silos that we work in, going to a theater to watch a movie and then coming away from it meant that you saw the movie in a movie hall. Right now, the movies are here, they are surrounding us, and they are, you know, they're like within 24/7, you're expected to be watching. And my office would be very happy if I don't stop watching at all. I mean, they would be just delighted because I'm watching a web series and I'm watching movies and I'm watching stuff that I always thought I would get to when I have the time. But now it's, you know, now is the time, and I honestly am not getting a break at all. So I'm just waiting for the theaters to come so that there will be, you know, the very clear demarcation between watching that stuff over there and not here. You know,
but you know, that's a great point you make, Shubhra, and I want to use that to sort of, you know, dive into the next question, and I'm hoping each panelist can answer. You know, we have, I think it's true of all of us, we've had to realign. We are now looking at shows. We're now looking at made for streaming films, films that are dropping on the streaming platforms. Has your craft changed? Has your approach to reviewing changed because what you're reviewing and how you're reviewing, or how you're watching those films to review has changed? Is there a difference in the way that you do your job now? Yes, sir.
I mean, I like reviewing films now is becoming a bit like reviewing books. Like you can read, reread, go back, mark, you know, passages, you know. So now when you're watching, sitting at home or on an OTT platform or a link that you've been sent, and you know, so you can actually watch a film twice, thrice, you know, go back, forth, you know, and so I think the art of reviewing films is, you know, undergone a change. I mean, we used to get links earlier as well, but we were under pressure to churn out stuff, so we would move from one thing to another much quicker. Now, I mean, you're watching an OTT series, of course. I mean, if you have 9 episodes, you're not going to repeat watch 9 episodes. But movies, I'm increasingly watching more than once. I mean, before I actually sit down and write a review. One good thing that has happened with me is that nobody's after my life to deliver immediately anymore. I mean, at least in the last 2.5 months. So I can always get away by saying, you know, I'll take 6 hours extra. And you know, that's
just you, Saibal. Enjoy the privilege. I'm speaking for everyone without even asking them. It's just you.
For me, I get extra time. I mean, see, if I have to review a film in the evening, I say, no, I'm going to do it in the morning, and I do it in the morning. I don't do, so I sleep over it. I watch it one more time in the morning and then do the review. So that is a huge advantage.
You know, Rajeev, when
one of us wants your job now, Saibal. Yes, Sangeetha, please.
Rajeev, when you talk about the craft as such, I think I'm a little more conscious of the fact that, you know, I'm not an OTT person at all. I get very restless if the content is not really gripping enough to sit and watch. I don't like sitting and watching hours at a stretch. So it's at a nascent stage. There have been hardly 2 Telugu films which have had a direct OTT release. And I'm very conscious of the fact that if it's not good enough, people are going to change, because you don't have the compulsion to sit in a dark hall and not get up and move away until the interval and all that, right? So I am factoring in those things, and, you know, there's no leeway to look at, you know, 10 minutes of boredom here and there. All that is also a part of it now.
Right.
So the criticism also changes accordingly.
Baradwaj?
So when I review a movie for OTT, I follow exactly the way. I darken the room. I start the movie, and I treat it like a regular movie, and then take a 5 or 10 minute interval break, and then I start the second half, simply because the thing is, I want to follow the pace that the director has set, with the breaks that he or she has set. Because but not when I'm watching a movie for my own stuff. That's different, because then I take whatever breaks or whatever it is, right? But if I'm reviewing, then I try to follow as much as possible a similar pattern, if you will, while watching, so that that it doesn't change. Because the thing is, it's like if you take breaks, right, within while you're doing the movie, it kind of for me at least, it becomes a slightly different movie when you take breaks. I don't know, just
I completely agree, Baddy, because I have a serious problem about pausing films, and it becomes a different creature altogether. It is not the film that the director intended it to be. So I in fact don't even take a break. I mean, when I sit down to watch, I watch that film in its entirety, and I make sure that I have nothing else, and no one's going to ping me, or I'm not looking at a phone. I'm literally not doing anything I wouldn't, even if if I'm sitting here. So I don't think in terms of craft, no, I don't think I apply the same metrics to the film if I'm watching it on a platform, or if I'm watching it in a theater, because that's really, what it is about. Though on the other hand, if I'm watching a series which I'm going to review, that is different. I might take a break after 2 episodes and give myself some breathing space and process some stuff and then go back. Binge watching is not, is good, but it's not really something that I enjoy in terms of work. If it is something that I can doing, and if I'm going on it's fine. But honestly, binge watching for a series is completely different. I think writing on a series can be a little more in your control, but a film is fully the way the director intended it. From this end credits, from the beginning credits to the end credits, I watch it through.
And I think
Udita?
from where, sorry.
Oh, shall I? Oh, sorry, Baddy.
Go, Baddy, go.
No, I just want to expand on one point that Shubhra said, is that there are certain, because I review films across languages and stuff like that, I try not to review series, and for me it's important to leave at least some things for just watching, and not watch everything with a reviewing kind of a thing, like I've got to get to a review to it. So mostly Hollywood films or series, unless I'm watching something in a festival or something like that, I try not to write about it, because that's just my viewing alone, and it keeps me a little like there's a breathing space. So it's not like a So I think I just want to put it out there.
Sure. Udita?
Yeah, hi. So, I agree with Shubhra actually. But I think there are two different things here. I think there's the film that's going directly to a streaming platform, and then there are series, right? So you're talking about something that could be 2 hours versus something where you're actually investing almost 360 minutes. And I think the way you consume an OTT series has to be different from the way you can consume a feature film, even if it's on a streaming platform, because I don't think shows are necessarily designed to be consumed in one go. And I think for me, I find that whole concept of binge watching something and therefore basing your review on how bingeable something was a little bit unfair and uncool, because in the old days you got one, whether it's Game of Thrones, whether it's, Defending Jacob, shows that are even coming out today, you get one episode a week. And I think I like to look at the show to see, does it grip me enough for me to wait for the next episode? Can I take a break and come back to it? Do I lose anything? Do I gain something? The advantage of getting screeners in advance is that you can actually spread out your viewing over 2 or 3 days. And of course, if it comes in, like Sangeetha said, you have to log in first thing in the morning and watch it and have your review out, then it's a little breathless and you go back to that feature film pace, except with that many more hours of viewing. So I think that can get a bit chaotic.
Yeah, but if I can add to what Udita said, when you watch, say, something like Patal Lok, it's a series, like it's 360 minutes or whatever, maybe more than that, but it's written like a film, so it's like, it's scripted like a film. It's a long film. It's like a Lav Diaz film, probably shorter. And, so I think it helps if you watch it in one go, but one go is not possible when it's 6 hours or 7 hours. But yeah, at least with one break. That's what I try to do. But I've tried many other shows which have been sent to me, but I've seen only one episode and given up. I haven't reviewed them because it's pointless going ahead, continuing with these. There's many terrible shows that are being dumped on us at the moment.
Rajeev, why don't you jump in and give us your perspective as well?
Yeah. I'm going to pick up on things that Baradwaj said. For me, I haven't actually done a lot of reviewing because I just felt I was exhausted. I really do understand the feeling of being on a treadmill. I was really exhausted by the routine of the number of films we were watching before this happened. And of course, this is not the way that I wish we had to have the break. But I am grateful for the break. And I've chosen consciously up until today to not actually be reviewing. I want to use some time to be able to watch what I want to watch and not what I have to watch. So I've actually been doing recommendations on the television show that I do instead of perhaps next week onwards, when there are I'll pick up and when more frequently there'll be films releasing. But for me it was important to have that break and to look at films that I wanted to watch or even rewatch. I've been recommending films that I loved which I had an opportunity to rewatch. And I think it's important also because I think that criticism is beyond isn't it just beyond just reviewing the new releases? It's also about about looking at stuff that has already been there. I mean, re-looking at earlier stuff and examining how you feel about it when you watch it maybe a couple of years later. So I've been enjoying a little bit of that. I've actually kept away from reviewing shows and films. I've up until now. That'll change maybe next week.
So here I want to actually just say that nobody from the Express actually. I mean, we are not sort of forced into watching everything and reviewing everything. It is pretty much, if my call, if I really like something and I think that it has something to say, then definitely, the urge to talk about it and put it into context is something that I would like to do. And because of the fact that we are so, as people who watch movies in theaters, OTT platforms have always been sort of, second-class citizens as far as that concerned. So like, I'll get to it when I get to it. But now if that is what it is, then I'm actually quite enjoying the whole idea of, watching this and that, because everything, everything is grist to our mill. It is going to come at some point and, be part of what we write, of how we observe things. So I think it's great, except yes, there are no full stops here. It just goes on and on and on. Yeah.
The question I wanted, sorry.
Sorry,
yes.
I just want to add to something that Shubhra said, that she said that, OTT shows are second-class citizens and stuff. What I've noticed is, because I've been reviewing series for a couple of years since the boom sort of started. And what's interesting now in this period of lockdown, when people aren't able to go to the theaters, and that sort of pecking order has changed, right? So suddenly critics who were not looking at OTT and who were sort of like, sticking to film as their sort of as the purest kind of criticism, are now pivoting and have had to, adapt and, accept the fact that this is the only way that they can, keep going, because this is what everyone's watching and wants to know about. And I think it's something we're going to talk about later. So I think I'll just hand it back to you, Rajeev, so you can move on.
I want to ask, in a scenario where, where shows and films are dropping frequently day and date for both the audience and for the reviewers. Yes, we do get some screeners, but there are plenty of screeners that we don't. Also, to be honest, when critics were reviewing films for cinemas, first I think we have to say here that although the job of a critic is not just to tell you, and certainly not to tell you, should you watch, should you not watch. I mean, we can't shy away from the fact that is largely the purpose that one serves. I mean, in the environment, in the country we live in the society that we live in. I mean, they look at reviews largely, to make up their mind about whether to watch or whether not to watch. In that scenario, when now you have shows and films and streaming shows that are dropping at the same time that everyone can watch it at the same time and for free, practically for free, because if you're subscribing to it, it is free to you. What is the role that the critic is really serving? I mean, are we, they don't really need to, it's not like they need to spend, they're saving $500 if you say it's not particularly good here. They can decide for themselves. What is the role here, and what is the importance of criticism in that scenario?
Can I just say that I think we are more important than ever before? Simply because of the fact that this is a platform and there is just so much stuff in there that you can spend 45 minutes of your life just looking at something that you may want to watch, right? And then you start it, and then you're a couple of minutes later you're like, nah, not for me. Then you go to the next and you go to the next, and that's it, you're done. So if you have people like us, I mean, telling you that, look, don't, here are the options that you can. I think it will serve even much more. I mean, I would say that this is a real good time for critics to be out there and say, boss, don't watch that stuff if that is how you do it, because that's really not how most of us, at least not me. I don't like telling people whether you should watch it or not. I just tell people whether I liked it or not. And if you like, what I like, and if you want to just check that out, I think it's great. I really think it's much more, we are much more used right now.
Do the rest, does everyone else agree?
Right. Yeah, I think Shubhra.
Yeah, because I think
right, because sorry, shall I go? Okay, Shoaib will go.
No, carry on.
Okay. So I think
you carry on.
right. Yeah, because I think with film, people make a lot of decisions based on the star power of the movie, right? If their favorite hero or heroine or director has made it, they tend to gravitate towards it, and the film becomes, it becomes critic proof, it becomes review proof. But I think with an OTT show, the difference is that you don't have a lot of big name talents. You have very good actors. You have a lot of people from theater. Casting and writing are very intrinsic parts of how streaming shows are formed. So I think there people are looking for a little bit more guidance, because they don't necessarily know what that canvas is going to involve or what it's going to be about. And I think that while there are some shows that just have, like, say, a Patal Lok, or in the past there has been, like, say, a Mirzapur or a Made in Heaven, which just have a natural kind of a momentum that carries them forward. There are smaller shows like Asur or the Riker Case, and maybe I don't know, maybe some from the Telugu industry that I'm not even familiar with, which if you guide people to them, they tend to find an audience which they may not have found otherwise, and so they then first look at a review, I think, to figure it out.
Can I say? Sorry, Saibal.
No,
please
just
continue.
one second.
I think
With the OTT platforms, what is happening with me at least is, I feel film reviewing has become purer. I'm not recommending anything. I'm just watching a series, analyzing it, making sense of it, both for myself and for the reader, if the reader is interested. I'm not telling a reader that, this is what you should watch. I just analyze it and then leave it to the reader. So it's like more like I'm not talking down to anybody. It's just an analysis that, of the kind that, we used to see in the earlier days when, Chidananda Dasgupta or Iqbal Masood used to write. Back in the time when I started out in this profession. And and after that television came and everything happened. And then we started recommending things to people because people had far more to choose from. Yeah. So I think in a way we are going back to that with the OTT platform. Although people do have a lot of options, but the better ones come out of the clutter and get noticed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Can I go?
Yeah.
See, when lockdown started and new content started coming in, I had this question: how relevant are we? Are people going to really read what we write? Because there are other things which are much more pressing for them. And there's already content available. But gradually, when the first web series I reviewed was a Telugu web series called Loser. It's a sports anthology. And I found that by that time, this month, when it came about a couple of weeks ago, people had already binge watched a lot of content, and some of them had reached a saturation point. So there was a reluctance to watch something unless they knew that it's really good. I'm not talking about the regular people who by habit, browse through different apps and then look for content, but there are a lot of others who look for some sort of a review and then see whether it's worth their time and effort to see. So I think it's all the more important that we stick to our reviewing and make it more relevant now.
Lovely. Baradwaj?
I feel that right now we are the same place where we were. I think the real big seismic shift in reviewing happened when social media came, because the number of opinions that came out there were so many that it actually relieved the critic of having to recommend or not recommend a film, because word of mouth passed on to people on social media, like on Facebook or Twitter or something like that. If your friend or your neighbor or somebody said it's good, not good, that became the immediate thing. Because again, like Sangeetha, for us in the South, the previews and the instant reviews are not really a thing. We mostly go for an early morning show, just like most other people. So and watch it and come back. So I think similarly for OTTs too, like the really big ones like Money Heist and all those things, social media takes care of it because everybody's talking about it. That's the tag that's trending everywhere. I think where we really serve a purpose is where we serve the purpose earlier as well, as in recommending the lesser known, the lesser, lesser profile thing. Because let's take Patal Lok, right? Of course, the reviews help, but it also got a lot of publicity because Anushka Sharma was behind it. There was there's a certain vibe to it, right? But let's take a loser, right? Let's say Sangeetha gave it a good review. Now that might be something more that would be a little more used than something for Patal Lok, which kind of the buzz is created on Twitter or social media itself is what I feel.
Yeah, true.
I mean, to add to what Badi said, I mean, I think independent films, I mean, we're not talking about OTT platforms now. Independent films have always depended on critics.
Yeah.
The bigger films, a Salman Khan film does not need a critic. An Akshay Kumar film does not need a critic to tell the world, go and watch the film. So it's always the independent, smaller films have always depended on word of mouth, and critics do play a role there. I mean, and the role we play is much greater, there than in, say, the bigger ones. I mean, the bigger ones we review because everybody wants to read, but I don't think we make a difference. I mean,
it gets the website numbers.
So at this point, I want to bring in a question. I mean, that Carol Andrade has asked. Carol is a very senior journalist. She asked, it looks like film reviewers must act as curators in view of the huge amount of content available on streaming platforms. Would you agree?
I mean, if you have a movie account, I mean, what happens is you see a lot of great films, but you cannot recommend them because you're not sure whether everybody has a movie account. I mean, the general public might not yet have started accessing movie. I mean, but we as critics have watched a lot of films a second time. We've watched films that we missed in festivals, like, Beanpole, I watched today. I watched Emma a few days ago. So these are films which we encountered in festivals, but we missed because we're watching something else. Or you watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire a second time because it's a film you really love. So how do we recommend those films? I mean, unless we just post on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, because I don't think everybody, because that's the problem I face. I mean, I often inquire whether, these films should be reviewed, but then we figure out, I mean, we when we talk around and see, I mean, not too many people have movie accounts at the moment, but that's a gold mine. I mean, we all know that. I mean, you can really watch it, and now they've opened their library, which is like a treasure trove.
But I think that we do. I think it is our job to answer the question. I think we are curators. I think, right now especially, and I think, say, people like Shubhra and Saibal and Baradwaj who travel to a lot of festivals, they have, greater access to world cinema. So they're able to be, in a way, their curation has great value because they're already seeing things before they've come to any streaming platform quite often, because they're catching them at a festival. For those of us who are spending, who are getting access to things, I think there's a filtration that happens by the publication sometimes. And I think they decide, we don't think there'll be an audience for this. There may not be, that might be too niche. And I think that can sometimes sort of go, against what we should be doing as curators. But, I mean, for example, I reviewed Emma for Scroll, and that was on Movie. But at the same time, we also review, I'm reviewing documentaries from Netflix as well, and things like that. So I think it just depends on whether you think that there will be some stickability to that product and whether people in the country will be interested, whether your readers will get, some sort of, guidance into it, and then they might sample a new platform that they didn't know about before.
I also have to jump in here. yes, I think the whole business about curation is something that we are all doing in any case, because we are now, so many of our, in fact, practically every single thing that we write, or people like Rajiv has, I know they have, everything on their YouTube channels. It is like a whole, repository of the things that we have liked and watched. And I think it is curation. It is, and also I think it doesn't really matter if most people are not on movie right now. I think people can bookmark it. People are now very, very, interested in watching things that they may not have access to immediately, but at some point they're going to get to it. So I don't think, I don't think that in itself is a rate limiting factor, that not having a platform or not having access to it immediately. I think people are just going to be very, and going forward, I think people are just hungry to get people, people who may have seen it before, people whose opinions that they trust, to tell them that, can we watch this? What, okay, not can we watch it, what are we going to get when we watch it? What is it that you take away from? That's, yeah.
And to just add to that, it's like, that is my, I don't know, fear is the right word, but because OTT, like every app or something that we get used to, rewires our brains a certain way, right? So the fact that you're watching stuff at home and you have the facility to, the ability to tune out after 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes if you're bored, I wonder if that's going to affect film viewing in the future in theaters as well, because is it going to make people much more impatient than they are? Will they give films a chance? Because right now we don't give, like, simply because there's so much out there that if by 20 minutes of a series or something, or a movie, I'm bored, you move to something else, because but when you go to a film, there's a certain promise that the film holds, that maybe it's going to take half an hour to take off, maybe the world building is taking the first 30 minutes, and then that's when the story starts or something. And I'm just like I know this is not really answering your question, Rajiv, but it's just something that I was thinking about, because it was like, like, is it going to rewire brains in a way that we become less patient with movies? I don't know. It's just,
were we patient when those guys were walking with pizzas in front of us, and people's cell phones were ringing in the middle of the show? I mean, I think we lost it a little while ago already.
Rajiv, what do you think? What do you think about this? Because you travel as much as all of us do, and you have access to as much cinema as we all do. What do you think about this business?
I think that there will be. I think there will. I think movies are not. I mean, going to the movies is not just about watching the movies, right? It is actually about going to the movies, and I think that is something that's the part that is being missed sorely. One has access to the films, but it's the experience. Especially in a country like ours, where it really is the most popular form of entertainment, and you go out as a group of friends, you go out as a family. So I actually think that once the movies are going to be back, I mean, once the cinemas open, I think that people will be very. I don't think that I don't think there's any fear of certainly people not having the patience or not having the interest to sit in the theater for that, because I think that's what we miss the most. I think that the OTTs will be there, and there will be shows and there will be films, but I think that people will be hungry to go back, because it just serves such a basic need of community, of watching a film in a group. It's an evening out. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge here that we watch films, even though we watch them in the same way, where we're watching them as a job, and more often than not as a job, and much less frequently as purely entertainment. So that's what I feel. But I want to bring in a question.
Rajiv, I have a question
yes.
for you.
Yeah.
Rajiv, I honestly want to know, what do you have for breakfast? Because you have been like putting out, because you're not reviewing anymore, but you have been talking to a lot of people, and that is, like, in its own way, a kind of extension of the job of a critic, because it's to engage people in conversations about cinema, and kind of talk to them about their films, or like their creative processes or whatever. How did you just kind of say, I'm going to not use this break to do this every single day or almost every single day?
I think quite early on, actually, I remember it was that day of Janata curfew that I recorded the first interview. It was with Anurag Kashyap, and there was no plan as such to do it every day or whatever. And then I just sort of, threw it as a challenge to myself. Let's see if one can do one every day. And then I did. I mean, almost for 32 days, I did one every day. And then I was like, what, this is tiring. And also then I don't want to have conversations for the sake of having conversations just to hit a number. So now I do it, now we do 2 or 3 in a week, and hopefully it's with people, that one wants to listen to and talk to. But I think the whole embracing of the technology was a big, seeing that as a challenge was a big part of it. Can I overcome this challenge? Can we do this more regularly? And one can. Clearly, we're all doing it. Actually, the truth is, but I'm dying to meet people and talk to them face to face. I cannot wait to sit across from someone, because I do believe, and I have had some conversations where people are very are happy to speak very candidly, but I do believe that doing it on a computer, you're never really going to be able to get to that level of intimacy that you do when you're in a room with someone. So I can't wait to dump the laptop and just get out and meet people.
But except that people have a lot more time to talk to you, right?
That part is true, and that's the other thing. You have to take advantage of the fact that no one can really say that, oh, we're not in town, or oh, we're busy 24/7. Like in all fairness, a lot of filmmakers and actors can be, most other times of the year. I mean, they can. I mean, they have busy lives, but it's nice to have them all. In a sense, under house arrest. And now it's just a question. Now when someone's saying no, it's just because they don't want to do it. None of the excuses, no other excuse holds any water. I want to bring in a question from Karan Singh. Karan Singh has asked a question, and I'm hoping only one person, because then we'll get more questions in. Someone who reviews OTT shows, if they can answer this. A general question: how exactly do you review a TV series? By episode, by season, or the whole show? Even if you pick season, how do you deal with shows with 20-25 weekly episodes per season? 20-25 weekly episodes? Where does that happen? Yeah? But can someone talk about the craft of doing the series, of reviewing a series?
See, a series we review. See, it's like reviewing a film, because when you review a film, say I write 1,000 words. For a series, I write only 1,200 words. So it's like 200 words extra for 5 hours extra viewing. So it's like a film. So you're putting in more hours, but your review, what you're writing, is roughly the same length. So you can only treat it as one product. You can't break it up into. So if you do you review one season. I mean, I've reviewed a second season, a third season, but that you can do. But each time you do it as one block. It can't be split into the number of episodes that you've watched. It's not possible, I think.
I think just to add just really quickly, Rajeev, is that if it's, for example, if you're about to, if there's a season 2 of something coming out, but you haven't seen season 1, I think part of the rigor is to ensure that you've seen season 1, if there is a connection, of course, before you embark on reviewing season 2, because otherwise you have no context. So it would be quite strange to just review something in isolation as a second season, having no context of season 1.
Right.
I think that holds true for cinema as well, because if I am coming to a filmmaker new, and I don't know what he's done before, for me that would be, for me, context is the most important thing when I'm actually reviewing a film or I'm looking at it. If I don't know what the director has done before, that is part of the homework that we all do, that we know what the director has done before, so to build an arc in our own heads about, where this person started from and where is he now with this new film. So I think what Udita is saying in terms of seasons, I think that holds true for cinema as well. And particularly, you're right. I mean, unless you know what happened before, how can you have an opinion on what's happening now? It doesn't make any sense.
Here's a question. Since OTT platforms it's a question from Pramit Chatterjee. Since OTT platforms have removed the whole discussion about box office collections because there isn't any, does everyone think that people are going to rise above that form of critiquing movies and actually talk about the craft?
I just want to say, I think it's a great question. And I think it's true. And I think I mentioned this earlier, which is that with OTT, what I find a lot of critics doing I think most of us did it. Most of us were here, but I think increasingly so is people are talking about the writing. They're talking about the casting. They're talking about dialect and locations and, the milieu and stuff like that, which when you're talking about a big blockbuster movie, a lot of those things get overlooked. So I feel that, yes, I think there is a difference in the language we're using even, and in the kind of elements that when I say we, I'm talking very broad collective we, not just the Film Critics Guild, but, which is a subset, but I'm saying largely. I don't know if my fellow panelists agree.
Yeah, does anyone?
I think it makes a point. See, most of us have not been swayed by what box office predictions are, right? None of us are trade analysts. We review a film for what it is. So for us, it's been the same. But for a lot of others who just give 3 stars, 3.5 stars, looking at the star and, who's a producer, who's a director, maybe there it makes a difference for them. I don't think the work ethics for any of us individually would have changed.
Absolutely.
I'll bring in another question. How do film critics draw a line? This is a question from Sandeep Raturi. How do film critics draw a line between what films to review and what not?
It depends on organization to organization, if I may say so, at least for people like me who are connected to a publication. So my task is to review Telugu content since I'm in Hyderabad. And somebody from Mumbai takes care of the Hindi content. And then, there are a couple of people who take care of the Hollywood content. It gets segregated that way. But for freelance journalists, I think anyone else would be in a better position to answer that.
I know Shubhra reviews everything and watches everything.
I try and watch everything, but I don't have to review everything. There's a difference. I mean, I can choose, which is I'm really, I'm really happy about that, because my paper doesn't insist on a review of every single thing that is out in the theaters every week. But yes, the whole idea is to watch as much as you can and as much as is available, because that's the only way I feel comfortable about, that whole firmament of watching films is not just about that individual film, but about what else is happening. What were the movies of the week and what were the movies of the month? You only get that cartography, you only get that map when you try and see as much as possible. Yeah, so yes, I try and see as much as possible, but I don't have to review. I choose. And that's, if it is something that will not be, we won't even dignify our paper with, we will not do that. I can choose. And I'm happy about that. Yeah.
In the case of a lot of films, I mean, because they don't have the P&A budgets, they come in without a buzz. And then, a lot of these platforms sink a film without any buzz. Nobody's going to read the review. So unfortunately, those are the films that require reviews because they just don't have, the clout to generate the kind of buzz that big films can. But yeah, I'm not saying that all such films are good films, but a lot of those films are surprisingly good and they need to be discovered. And there has to be a system where, we actually spot films, and bring them out and talk to people about them. But that I don't think happens to the extent that it should, because we live in a nation and in a media environment where everything has to be saleable.
But Sorry,
I just have to, while Saibal was talking about how we do this, I honestly, one of the things that I really miss is having access to film from across the country in the cities that we live in. I mean, we have to go up. Part of our job is to track the films that, that we want to watch. And because of social media now, there is already, you're already looking out for the films that, people who review in other languages like Sangeetha or Baradwaj, if they talk about a Tamil film or Telugu film, I'm going to put a little star over there and say, okay, well, I can, but when is my one big thing is to be able to have access to films across the board, subtitles films from across the board, not just from around the globe, but from within the country, should become something which is just something that we really should have much more access to. And that way, I think OTT platforms are fantastic, because you really do have access to all kinds of films which are clearly subtitled in the language that you understand, as long as you can, of course, find them. That's where we come in, I guess. Yeah.
There's a question from Chaitanya Sharma. He asks, what would you say about the trend of Bollywood films premiering directly on OTT, starting with Gulabo Sitabo? Would you have preferred watching a Shujit Sarkar film in a theater?
Anyone?
I'll just quickly, I just have a very quick point on this that, I think watching something on your laptop or even your home TV is fine to an extent, but I think you miss out on a lot of details. I think you miss out on a lot of details in terms of art direction, in terms of sound design, in terms of what's going on in the depth of field. And I think that when you're looking at something on such a big screen, it becomes far more immersive. So I think there are filmmakers who design their films purely, I mean, definitely like that. But then there's a Game of Thrones, which was all of that, and it was designed for television, and you got everything that I just described. So I think it really depends on no, I don't know that I would have preferred to watch a film here or there. I think just the fact that we can watch any film right now is just such a joy and a blessing.
No, I mean,
Okay.
thanks to technology, it just helps us to tide over this kind of a situation. If this had happened, like say 10 to 15 years ago, how would we cope with something like this, not being able to step out and just being homebound like this? So I think it's, for a stopgap solution, it's really good.
I think the OTT platforms will never be able to replace the big screen. I mean, the big screen, I mean, we will all go back to the big screen, yes. I mean, with restrictions and some limitations, and, we probably have to practice social distancing inside the movie hall. There'll be fewer people. But, I mean, cinema is the big screen. I mean, for most of us, I suppose. I mean, it's like, it's the OTT platforms are an extension. I mean, they help us because it's a new technology and we can sit at home and watch, when necessary. But I think we'll all gravitate back to the big screen because, that's where the action is.
There's a question from Iresh Gupta, and I hope everyone can answer this. The best thing in any form that each of you have watched in the past 70 odd days.
Rajeev, why don't you start?
Yes.
Wow, the best thing in, okay, I'll come to it at the end. I'll be the last. If anyone has an answer first, it'll take me a moment to think.
Yeah, seriously.
The best thing in the last 70 days. Wow. Like film or series?
Yeah,
right?
anything that you watched. Yeah.
Okay. Can we come back to this question?
No, I think top of my mind is a documentary, not very long, 76 minutes. It's an American film called Minimalism. Minimalism. A film
And
about
where can we find it?
It's on Netflix. It's
Minimalism
a documentary.
on Netflix.
Minimalism. You don't have to agree with what these guys are saying. They're two friends who travel around the country, the US, telling people why they should just cut down on consumption because it's a huge racket, forcing people to consume. And I watched this like immediately after the lockdown began, and I realized how relevant the message was. And then sometime along like maybe a month along the line, we started questioning the premise because you felt, maybe you wanted to go back to your Starbucks and to your restaurants and to your H&Ms or whatever. But that film is very, very relevant for our time. It's called Minimal.
Awesome Powell Pressburger movies, on Mubi. These were made in the 50s in the UK, black and white, and fantastic. Those are films which you can never find anywhere, which I had 2 days where I didn't have to file anything. So I literally sat and watched, I think, 3 films over 2.5 days, and it was fantastic on Mubi. Yeah.
I really liked watching the Malayalam film Virus. I think that was really relevant given the time that we are in. I found it to be really absorbing, much more than Contagion, I should say.
Yeah. I had a movie thing as well. I watched The Tales of Hoffman, again, Paul Pressburger thing. It was the 1950s color film, and I thought that was quite amazing in terms of how it was designed. And the other movie that really, really was fantastic was finding a superb print of The Servant by Joseph Losey in movie. That was it was a stunning print. I had seen something fuzzy a long time ago and had vague memories, but this was just so stunning. So I don't know if it's still playing or it's gone.
No, it must be.
Yeah, I saw it too, and I think I was completely blown away by just the aspect and the color correction and just the lovely lambent black and white films. Honestly, I miss the access to those films, and I'm repeating myself, but I think only for that, to be able to go back and watch something that you may have either missed out on, or you just want to go back, because in our lives, in the life of critics, there really is so little time to to go back.
Revisit.
to revisit. It's honestly, this is the only time that I've found that I've had that 3.5 hours where I have nothing else going on. So I said, okay, let me watch that. And it's been really rewarding. Yeah, The Servant was fantastic.
Udita?
Oh, so, well, I have to admit that I haven't watched too much archival stuff because I've been watching a lot for reviewing or for, interviews. So when I'm done with that, I actually don't want to spend any more time with the screen. And so I've been doing jigsaw puzzles or cooking. But of the things that I've watched that I had to watch for work, I think the two things, I'm going to recommend three things. One is a film, one is an Indian series, and one is an international series. I really, really liked Never Have I Ever on Netflix. It's a very frothy teenage show and very easy breezy. And I think that's exactly the mood I was in when I watched it. I didn't want anything heavy on my head at that time. Panchayat really took me by surprise. Just a charming small town India show, which I really thought it was really well crafted. And Emma on movie, which I thought was just so immersive and visceral. It was wonderful.
Actually, I can talk about something that I saw, which I really loved. Is Alice Wu's The Half of It. Anyone here seen it?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but yeah,
I loved it. I really, really.
Netflix, yeah.
I honestly, it's one of the few films I've seen in the last few months, which I've really liked so much. It's a lovely coming of age film with 3 people in it, and it has a little Bollywood angle to it. Not an angle, but a little, and you're very interested. Yeah, one small town in the US, somebody's watching a film with has a train scene. I think it's Ekvillain. Yeah.
It's Ekvillain, yes. Yeah.
And it's
Shubhra, I watched that film on your recommendation. So you see, we also take recommendations from each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we're looking at, I think we're all looking at our own these things with a great deal of care, because if one of us says it's a great film, then, I'm much more likely to watch it than anyone else. So yeah, I love that film. I think everyone should go off and see it.
Okay, there's just to have some fun. There's a question here from Kunal Haryani who asks, how do you deal with diehard fans while reviewing their favorite actors' films?
Rajeev, you have to start on this one.
Yeah, I'm known to sometimes be rude. In exchange to, in response to rudeness, I don't have the patience to. Sure, you're a fan, but that's not my job. That's not my bio. That's not my brief to. So yeah, I'm known to get quite rude. And if I wasn't, if I wasn't reviewing for an organization, if I wasn't responsible to an organization, I probably would get as abusive in return sometimes. Because the fans can get rude and mean and impolite. So yeah, that's me. The rest of you, how do you deal? I like the word that's been the phrase that's been used to describe is the diehard fans. I think the word they're looking for is trolls.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, Rajeev.
But 2001 when I reviewed Lagan and Gadar, one back to back.
Same day, yeah.
Yeah. So Lagan, obviously, I loved. Gadar, I hated, and I was called a Pakistani agent long before people have been, sent to Pakistan for, bigger crimes. So, but I'm not a very social media savvy person. I'm not active on Twitter. I'm not active on Insta. So I don't follow what people are saying. So, अगर कोई गाली दे रहा भी है, तो I'm not aware.
Okay.
I keep it out of my system.
I think all of us need to, to have devise our own ways of, dealing with this. I remember some years ago when it had just started, this whole business of being trolled on Twitter. I'd told one of my editors who said, you're getting response now. It's okay. All right. Learn to deal with it. Okay. But, but the kind of, sometimes I have to admit, though, it can get a bit much because they get really personal and it can become vile and vicious. And that is really, because I just bring up one quick, I remember Bahubali Part 2, which I didn't love as much as Bahubali. And the day it really, I wrote that review and I left for Hyderabad for some work. And when I walked into I was doing a session with some students, and there were some 30 people in that session who asked, why didn't you like Bahubali 2? Tell me now. And I was like, give me, and when I was stepping out into the Hyderabad streets, I was like, give me a burqa, somebody, I need to hide. So no, I'm kidding, but it can get to you. But I think we all learn how to deal with it, and it's okay. You can either I just my first default reaction is just ignore it and let it play out, and unless it really gets to be something, once in a while I'll retweet it. And
I think one of the tools
Counterpoint to
is a
this.
thick skin.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a counterpoint to this as well. Sometimes I've found very surprisingly that even these diehard fans accept it when you say that their star's film is not good, and they'll slowly come up after 2 days on Twitter, and then they'll say, yeah, he needs to pick better content. I've seen that happening quite often for the biggest of Telugu film stars, and I've been very pleasantly surprised.
I mean, I had an editor. I mean, I used to write on Doordarshan at one time. I used to cover, what was happening inside Mandi House, and I used to do negative stories, about corruption and this and that. And we would get legal notices, and the editor would call me to the room and say, "Are you sure of your story and your facts?" I would say yes, and he would be very excited. I mean, he would love legal notice. I mean, he loved legal notices because he said, if you do a story and nobody files a legal notice against, it's not worth doing it. So, I mean, I suppose we should.
I just like if I of late I just sometimes like Shubhra said, I'll just retweet it just to say that yes, I've heard you, I acknowledge you, but I'm not. That's the maximum I can do. I can't really engage in a conversation with you. I wish Twitter had another symbol than heart to kind of say that I acknowledge you, because heart kind of makes it sound like I love your comment, which is not what's happening. But the thing is, you realize that it's going to happen every time. You praise a movie, people are going to come at you. If you don't like a movie, they're going to come at you. Then then there's a politically correct that will come at you for a certain kind of review. There's a mass crowd that will come at you for a certain kind of review. So there's really no review that you can write that's going to please everyone across the board. And it's just that some people are going to be polite in the way they express their disagreement, and some people are going to be like trollish kind of thing. So what can you do about it?
I have a question for Rajeev. I mean, if you criticize a film like a big star, I mean, does the star refuse to come and talk to you? I mean, does he hold it against you over the
Sometimes,
period?
if they immediately choose not to do a conversation right after, I get it, because I feel like on some level I understand. I mean, I think one's been doing this long enough to understand that anyone who makes a film, and even if it's the worst film in the world, didn't set out to make a terrible film. So I understand that. I understand that you're hurt. That immediately it's hard to take. You're too close to the film, and I kind of give them. Actually, I give a lot of space. I don't even expect. I mean, if I run into them, I won't even expect them to say hello. I kind of will, expect the worst treatment. And sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. More often than not, you get exactly what you expect. But it's the ones who are still upset a year later that I find a little hard to take. I feel like that's too long to be upset, and too long to not understand that it wasn't personal, and that it was really one was doing one's job, and one was speaking from a place of of truly how one felt about a film. So yes, absolutely, there are those who will look through you, who will not take calls, who will not respond to messages. If it's about 3 months, if it's up to about 3 months after a film, I'm okay. A little after that, I start to kind of I start to lose respect. Okay, there's a question from Barkha, and again, if everyone could, could in brief maybe answer. What's your advice for film criticism as a career? Currently, I'm a software engineer working in an MNC, but I used to catch first day, first show, and I simply loved the movies. I loved Portrait of a Lady on Fire. What's your advice for film criticism as a career? If everybody could just give maybe a line, one piece of advice.
See, in India, the two C's, cricket and cinema, everybody's an expert on those two C's. I mean, so anybody can be a critic, but yeah, you have to have perspective. You have to have watched a lot of films. It's like you can't be a book reviewer if you haven't read books. You can't be, So you have to, if you've watched a lot of films, like a lot of us. I mean, I bunked school and watched films and got hauled up, and now I get paid to do the same thing. So if you are from that school, then I suppose you should come and review films.
Sure.
I would say read a lot of stuff, watch movies, of course, definitely, but also see different kind of writing perspectives, and then form your own opinion, and then you find your own voice and just stick to it.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's right, because I think I think with so many opinions out there, I don't think anybody's going to come and read you if you're going to just write exactly what somebody else is writing. You know, they come to you because they identify with your way of looking at a film, and if you can form a unique enough, I mean, don't force yourself to form a unique just to be contrarian or something like that. But I think if you have a point of view and you express it well, and people, and that's fairly unique thing, I think people will just come to you. That's what I found.
Okay. Shubhra, Udita?
Shubhra, go.
I would say that I think you need to be interested in the world around you in ways that because that engagement is going to feed into the way you look at things, and then the way you respond to those things. You cannot be looking at films in isolation, because there is really no such thing as an isolation thing. So you have to watch as much as you can. As Saibal said, you have to have your own voice, as Sangeetha and Baradwaj said. It has to come from within. It has to be you who's speaking. And also I feel that when you're talking about a film, the last thing you want is to actually tell people how to think and what to think. What you need to do is to share what you think and what you know, without patronizing. That is my complete, I just, a shutter goes down when people start telling me how much they know. It has to be conversational, it has to be in a sharing mode, and it has to be respectful of the person that you're, as you're respectful of the film, of your material. You have to be respectful of the people that you're writing for, or for, as far as you're concerned, speaking to. I think that, and just to be interested, just to be engaged with what is happening around. The world is our oyster, and a filmmaker doesn't live on Mars. He lives in the same planet as we do. So we have to have that connection with the world to be able to see something and have form an opinion on it. Yeah.
So yes, I agree with what everyone on the panel has said. Obviously, I mean, we all do the same thing. And just two more things. One is, I would say that, we have to remember that a lot of hard work goes into making a film. It takes us 300, 500 to 1,000 words to diss something that's taken years to make. So I think respect is the right word that Shubhra just used. Even if you don't like it, it doesn't mean that you have to give concessions for what was made. But I think to just realize that there's craft and hard work that's gone into it, but is there? I mean, those are the questions. And I think if you're planning to do, what I find nowadays, a lot of people are not really reviewing films. They are looking at box office and they're looking at the stars. So what's happening is that there's a kind of a projection of what they think a film will do, and it's become a lot about the sort of mythology around something rather than the film itself. So I think if you can separate yourself from that and not think, oh, this is likely to be a 100 crore film or a 200 crore film, and if it's Salman, this is the audience. So, it's a leave your brains at home thing. I don't think that those are parameters. I think a film is a film. It's not about leave your brains at home. Or, there are genres and you review the genre.
No, as I always say, you don't review the market, you review the film. I'm not interested in a potential box office, because that's really not of my interest at all. I am interested in what is my connection is with the film in front of me. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
We have time only for one last question, but I feel like this question is going to take us a little bit of time to get through. I'm gonna put it out there. It's I'm sure it's gonna. Okay, it's from Anas. Anas says, how do you step outside of your moral compass to judge and review movies? A supplement question to this is, was Kabir Singh bashed by critics because of the sexist ideology of the character which doesn't fit the learned culture of today? Or was Kabir Singh really a bad movie?
Oh.
Is this really the question we want to end on, though?
Yeah,
I thought let's say.
Why should we step out of our moral compass? I mean, why should the critic step out of his or her moral compass, even political compass? Because we all have our biases and prejudices, and we all carry some baggage or the other, and that's going to reflect. And there's that's not a crime. I mean, I will review a film through the prism that I have developed in my head over the years, and and that will come out. I mean, if it doesn't come out, then I'm actually compromising with my own beliefs. So I don't think we should do that, ideally, just to please some people.
I think that maybe I don't know. I mean, I may have a disagreement with Shabal here because, I mean, just the way the personal approach way, because I think that morally, I think pedophilia is indefensible. It's a crime, and but I saw a film at IFI Goa, Headburst. It's a German film that was about a pedophile who could not control his impulses but wanted to. So he goes to a shrink, and the shrink says, "Well, I know you're made this way, but as if you just if you act on it, it is a crime." So the whole thing was an exploration of a facet of something that's so horrible and icky and terrible, but also treated with great empathy. And I think one of the things about films is that it allows us to enter different moral worlds and spend time in them and then come back to ours, because what I'm watching is basically two characters on screen that are not necessarily extrapolations on how to behave or not to behave. These are those, like, 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever it is. Whatever is happening on screen is happening to those particular people, unless it's one of those films that's giving a moral message. So a lot of the 80s Hindi films used to do that. They used to talk about parivar and things like that, and how people should behave, and all those kinds of things. But as long as the film is very clear that this is just about this character and all that, I find that at least I have no problem entering other moral worlds, and then even though I feel differently about it, because it depends on the sensitivity of a filmmaker, the empathy that he or she brings to unlikable characters, unlikable acts, things that you would not even think of doing. A classic example being something like Raman Raghav, because you're talking about a murderer, and a sadist, somebody who enjoys killing, and you don't want to run into him. You don't even want to anything to do with him. But when you're watching a film, you kind of enter a different moral universe where you're seeing life through somebody who thinks like that. So I don't know. I'm just like,
I mean, if, I agree with you, Baddy, but say you see a film like The House That Jack Built, Lars von Trier. I mean, it's a film that you cannot relate to because we can't be Jack the Ripper and we can't understand his universe. But you enjoy the film, but you come out with even a film like Headburst. There's a moral context to it. I mean, it's not in a vacuum. I mean, that the pedophile.
Not a vacuum, but I'm just saying that I don't know what a moral universe is, because the morality that I believe in need not necessarily resonate with the morality of
the moral universe of the character. I mean, there is
the character.
It's not my moral universe. I watch I watch Antichrist. I'm not imposing my moral universe on Antichrist. I understand that he's coming from a place where he had a nightmare and he's putting that on the screen. And a nightmare can't be assessed, on a foundation of
I think
regular moral
same
beliefs.
thing,
I mean, obviously, I mean, I fully agree with you. I mean, I'm not saying that we should impose our moral universe, but our Kabir Singh I can never like, because Kabir Singh actually, I mean, the guy who is the sexist idiot actually gets the girl in the end. I mean,
that's it. I think I think this whole argument
if the girl had turned against him, I would have been okay with this.
Right, and I think I think that the Kabir Singh argument has been reduced to very simple from the fans, from those who love it. It's not just that he's sexist. It's exactly what Saibal said. You reward him at the end. That's the problem with the film. He's rewarded. I mean, or certainly for some of us.
But that's what happens in real life. Sometimes bad people win. I mean,
sure, of course. I mean, not that one's disputing that it happens or it doesn't happen, but that's, I think, where what Saibal was saying about how you feel and your morals will come into play. I mean, we are all products of our prejudices and moralities, and those will, I guess, come into play. Sangeetha, Shubhra.
Yeah, I'd like to say this because I think the Hyderabad critics got a lot of flack, especially after Kabir Singh came, because all of us gave a nice review to Arjun Reddy. No, there are two things at play over here. One is we evolve, our opinions change. If I had watched the same film today, maybe I would have had slightly different thoughts about it and the way I would have approached it. But at that point of time, it was also about the performance that happened over there. And Telugu cinema hadn't seen that kind of a different world for a long time. Our heroes cannot do anything wrong. They were all larger than life heroes and really noble people who are like they set the ideals for how things are. In that kind of a context, when something like this came up, it almost shook the entire formula, so-called formula, which was there, and showed a different kind of filmmaking as well. Which was one huge factor which I felt went for it. And as Baradwaj Rangan said, I agree with the fact that it's not a likable character at all. The entire film, I saw it as the life of a messed up guy. So that's where it ended. I didn't want to take a moralistic stand on whether what he does is right. Definitely he's not a likable person.
Right.
Yeah, I think you develop a way of looking at characters, whether it's Kabir Singh or Arjun Reddy, is that you're not looking at them as people who are coming from nowhere. They are coming from somewhere. They have a journey, and if you can look at it without being self-righteous about it, that is fantastic. You can actually diss the character. You can diss the character's motivation. You can fully diss the film and the way it does it without appearing to be shaking a finger, wagging a finger and saying you can't do this, because otherwise we would have no characters with minus moral compasses. There are so many people with no shades of gray at all. As at the center of the narrative of the film, how does a filmmaker actually see that, and how do we as critics respond to that character? Has to do a lot. I think it has to do a lot with who we are inside, and I think that is really what is the part of that review. Then it doesn't become bad or good. It becomes like, what is this guy? What is he doing? Why is he doing this? And all of those questions actually have to be, if you can respond to all of those questions, fantastic. But you're looking at it as a piece of work that somebody's put out there, and you can fully diss it. What I'm saying is you have to have a difference between what you think is right or wrong and what the character is doing. I think that is something that we have to be very clear about, whether it's either of these two films or any other film that has a complicated character who is who sort of takes the narrative forward.
Right.
I would just add, I think everyone said everything. I'll just say that I think the intention of the filmmaker really matters here. And I think that you can, your own moral compass is not the measure. It's about how you, I think, what everyone said, that, do you believe in the character's world? What about the draft, the trajectory, and what was the filmmaker's intention? Was the intention to provoke, to titillate, to be contrarian, to be controversial, I think all of those things matter. And I haven't seen Kabir Singh.
You haven't
Living under a rock, are you?
Same.
Well, it looks like that's all the time we have. We've gone on for about an hour and 22 minutes. But thank you, Udita. Thank you, Shubhra. Thank you, Sangeetha. Thank you, Saibal. Thank you, Baradwaj.
This
was great fun. Thank you. It was just great to see all of you. It was just great to see all of you. Hopefully, we'll see each other in the cinemas sooner rather than later. And to every one of the 52 participants who've stayed on till the end, thank you. I hope this was worth your time. Thank you for your questions. They were really wonderful questions. I'm sorry we couldn't go through all of them, but hopefully, we are the Film Critics Guild, and hopefully we'll do this more often. Perhaps there'll be a second panel because we've got several members, and hopefully there'll be another one with more panelists, and we can do this perhaps more often. But thank you to everyone who attended, and thank you to my wonderful colleagues. This was incredible. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rajeev.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah.